talking about how universal imposter syndrome is, we also have to be sincere about ourselves. Why we all battle imposter syndrome. And it's very simple. We all fear. And fear is not a bad thing. It's your alert warning system. But unfortunately, if your alert warning system is not trained well enough to understand between the danger, where it's going to produce cortisol, is going to produce adrenaline in most cases, because you go into this flight, fight, or freeze situation, you would not be able to learn as you're more focused on an imminent danger that perhaps doesn't exist. Versus if you learn how to cope with it, if you learn how to provide a different information through the experience, you will be able to train your brain to use fear as a warning system that can be shut down once it understands that you're there in this new environment to learn and that there's no danger. But in order to do this, we must practice. We must understand that the emotion of fear shouldn't lead you to inaction. But I strongly believe that why we all battle imposter syndrome is because of three key pressures in modern life. The first one, take a wild guess, the perfectionism trap. How many of us believe that in order to post something or to do something, it needs to be nearly perfect? Even as you're trained into a new environment, there's a high expectation by societal norms that you should know better. And also think about the elevated standards that society has created, where you don't want to be the one that looks different, that is more vulnerable, that is not adapting as quick as everyone else. So it's a choice at the end of the day to pretend to be that you know, and in reality, you don't know and you don't ask the question to know, or you fall into the one that doesn't know and it's okay with not knowing, but is going to do something about learning what they don't know. And they're not afraid of being seen like they don't know. And also many high achievers make the critical mistake of competence for perfectionism. If you're competent, you can still make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with it. Think about it. If you're competent, that means that you have experimented very much and you have gone through a lot of failures to learn what you need to learn and to acquire new talent and skill sets. You shouldn't be afraid of experimenting. You shouldn't be afraid of investigating. You shouldn't be afraid of listening to no and a few doors being shut. Because one of the most important things to overcome this mindset of being perfect is being resilient. And you have to take into account that success doesn't have to be flawless. It becomes flawless once you have discovered how to make it flawless. But during the process, it can't be flawless. It's going to have its bumps and bruises. And any small mistakes you make does not make you an imposter. I want that to be very clear. As a matter of fact, a mistake makes you take a different route to find the right answer. And there's nothing wrong with that. Think about how many times, in order to find the right couple, the right partner, you had to date a few people that weren't compatible with you. A few people that perhaps didn't have your best interests, a few people that hurt you. But then you start understanding what is that you really need, because you found in those failures what you didn't need. And you start realizing that data served you to now know exactly what you're looking for. And let's not forget that competence is built on making mistakes. You are in a lab. In that lab, it's not about that smooth execution. It's about the consistency, the resilience, and the mindset to overcome challenges and become solution oriented. So what you rather be, competent or perfect? And we can't be perfect. So perhaps the first option is the best option for you. So I want to start with the high achievers' hidden pain. They also suffer from imposter syndrome. And the reason being is because, think about it, if you're highly successful, that means you elevated the bar to the point where could the bar be achievable at some point? If you keep setting it up higher and higher and higher, this provokes a lot of suffering, a lot of internal pain, such as, would I be able to fulfill my deadline? You start doubting yourself. That inner fear comes in to play its role. And a lot of people believe that because if you're a high achiever, you don't get these sensations of doubt, of feeling that are you competent enough to achieve the new goal that you set yourself up to? But we all suffer from it. And it's all based on fear. Think about it. When we raise the bar on anything, we're going into a realm that is unexplored and we don't know if we will achieve it. But in the process, what we fear the most is that what we fear the most is the process of failure. And that process of failure makes us start questioning ourselves. Why did we do this? Are we capable of finding the solution? And as we wear these different personas and we're pretending that everything is okay outside because, the team looks up to you. You are that main leader. Everyone is focused on how are you behaving? Are you composed to fulfill the next goal? But yet internally, when you're alone, you start questioning if you make the right decision. And most of the times you will answer yourself that yes, you made the right decision, but were you too ambitious? Should you have set a different goal? And many other questions is the team trained well enough to achieve this new goal and this new, and the worst thing is that we try to convince the world, because we wear this professional mask, that everything is fine, that is achievable. But deep inside, we're terrified because there's nothing guaranteed. We don't know the outcome. And not knowing the outcome makes you walk in a thin line where you don't know if you're going to fall to the left, to the right, or if you're going to make it. The psychological root is often tied into an internal script that says my worth is only equal to my latest flawless achievement. And so we start having unhealthy comparisons to what we have achieved before in the past. But we are short in memory and we don't remember that during that process, we went through a process of pain too and uncertainty. And when we start to evaluate, we remember the good, but we forget about the hours of work and all the pain we had to endure and the suffering that was necessary to get what we wanted. But yet, as we all know how we react, we always want to achieve more. We're never content with what we already achieved because now we want more and we want to gather more and we want to build more success. The question is that healthy? Should you take a time? Should you take a break before you go into the next quest? Most of the time we think about, well, the others are training better than I. The others are working better and harder than I. And that unhealthy comparison also puts you in that trap. And this isn't simple low self-esteem. It's a profound disconnection between external validation. Think about it. If you ran a company and your competition is doing better than you, immediately you understand that you must do something to compete. But in that competition, you're more focused on being better than others than actually being better for yourself. And that external validation, it might feel really good when everyone's like, yes, you innovated this, you created this, you are the man, you are somebody that was innovative and you pioneer something new. And it's a great sensation to feel the victory. But how long does a victory last? Not too long, right? Then you got to go back into reality that your past success, how are you going to use it to even build yourself up higher? Or you choose to compete once more with others. But the question is, for what reason? Think about it. If you were highly successful and you made a lot of profit and you are already a self-made millionaire. And yes, with this, obviously your lifestyle changes and you might have to maintain it and continue to be success. But there's always a price to pay for that, right? So the price is you're going to always have to work into that loop of continuing to be successful in order to maintain your life cost. Think about how we handle praise, the new paychecks we get, the titles we get when we are highly successful, and then the internal conviction. And most of the times we ask ourselves what you truly believe about your ability. And unfortunately, in that gap, that space between the mass and the self is where the pain accumulates. Because in order to win, we must lose something. And it's proven that very successful people go through depression, go through anxiety. They're not posting it. They don't brag about it because it's difficult to show your vulnerabilities, especially when everyone is praising you and has you at a high standard. But this is where we damage ourselves, pretending to be extremely strong and that we can handle anything because everyone has this vision that a successful leader shouldn't express emotion, shouldn't express vulnerability, shouldn't express that they're stressed or they're tired or they're fatigued because they're the ones everyone is looking up to. But in reality, we're all humans. From the very top to the very bottom, we all feel the same. And imposter syndrome affects everyone. It does not discriminate. And if you don't know, and if you haven't learned how to cope with your true identity and find out why you're thinking it this way, because it could be some past traumas that are hindering around, then eventually it's going to accumulate to the point where you can develop emotional disorders. So it's always suggested, no matter where you are in life, at the very top or the very bottom, doesn't matter, in the middle, wherever you are, what are you going to do with yourself when you're facing imposter syndrome? And when you start accumulating all this sadness and depression about who you're trying to portray every day versus who you really are inside.